Welcome to Module 4 of the Built on Values Coach Certification. I'm Ann Rhoades, founder and president of PeopleInk. I'll be taking you through this module of Built on Values Coach Certification. During this step of the Built on Values Culture System process, your role as a culture coach is to facilitate hiring A players. Our most important job as leaders, frankly, is hiring A players. As a Built on Values Culture Coach, you will work with senior leaders to accomplish these objectives. To help your organization incorporate values into the hiring process. To coach interviewers to write and use behavioral interview questions for both competencies and values. To help an organization include peer interviewers in the hiring process. Work with the Values Committee or a hiring subcommittee. To review the current hiring practices. To identify ways to improve your hiring practices. And incorporate values into the hiring process. In recruiting, promote the values and culture on your website. For applicant screening, ask values screening questions. And on interviewing, ask values questions. In your selection decision, include values in the selection criteria. New employee onboarding, include a segment on values. Behavioral interviewing is based on the principle that past behavior predicts future behavior. During World War II, when the Air Force found that some pilots were consistently hitting their targets and some were not, they decided to analyze why is it some always hit their targets and some do not. And they found out that there were certain behaviors around those successful pilots. And they started hiring around those behaviors. And you know the outcome, it was very positive. This process is 90% predictive when you do it right. Creating behavioral interview questions for the competency profile of a specific position. Two different types of competencies are what we look for. Skills and knowledge, the really abilities of the candidates. Values, behaviors that fit your culture. By asking questions for both types of competencies, we are more likely to find the best match for a candidate with our company. Most interviewers do not ask behavioral questions. Other types of questions are not as effective. A theoretical question. What would you do if you experienced a difficult customer? A closed-ended question. Are you able to handle the stress of a busy workplace? A behavioral question. Give me an example of a time when you experienced a difficult customer. How did you handle it and what was the outcome? The STAR method is a structured way of asking behavioral interview questions. Situation. Give me an example of a time. The task. When you experienced a difficult customer. The action. How did you handle it? And the result, what was the outcome? This is an example of a behavioral interview question about values. An example of the value on integrity. And I will tell you the story behind this question. When we first started JetBlue 20 years ago, we were interviewing a number of A&P mechanics. And one of the applicants came to us and told us a story about his past behavior. And it was a story about how integrity played a great role in his life. He was asked shortly after going to work for a well-known airline, he was asked to sign off on an aircraft he did not feel was safe. He did not sign off on that aircraft, and he was considered insubordinate and fired. It had been over 2 years since he had been able to find a job, and he actually went back to his school and taught A&P mechanics because he was such a good student. But he came to JetBlue to interview, and he told us that story, and we couldn't wait to hire him. And today, he is a manager at JetBlue Airways. We recommend involving peers in the interview process. It's a different and important perspective, and the candidates will often confide in a peer, and peers take responsibility for the success of the new hire. A typical interview team is composed of 3 to 4 people. They may include additional interviewers, another peer, a manager, a supervisor, or a collaborator. Each interviewer is assigned specific questions, and the interviewer always takes notes. Interview team guidelines. Each interviewer conducts a separate interview, not a group interview. The interviewers should be trained. They should use assigned interview questions consistently and then be part of a consensus meeting. Candidate recruiting experience. It speaks volumes about your culture. And a positive experience means those candidates are more likely to accept the job offer. Applicants are also more likely to refer other great candidates. In this module, we have covered the steps involved in hiring A players. In subsequent modules, we will cover how to implement each of the additional steps of the Built on Values Culture System. You can access this presentation and other Culture Coach resources for this module in the BOV Culture Coach Toolkit.